Hey everybody, it's Dr. Eric Balcouch. We're back for another edition of Thyroid Thursday, and today I'm going to answer a listener question. Sometimes I like to do these in those short videos, but this one's a little bit more complicated, so we're going to do a Thyroid Thursday on it. So the patient's question was, could adding T3 to their T4 medication cause them to gain weight, actually have a slower metabolism? And it can, and I'll walk you kind of through what's going on. So this is a person who was on T4 only, but their T3 and their free T3 levels were functionally low. They still had hypothyroid signs and symptoms. And they went to an integrative practitioner who then said this person had a problem converting T4 to T3. Therefore, the solution was to give them T3 since they were a non-converter or they had reduced ability to convert T4 to T3. So the doctor added some T3 and they've been tinkering with the dose of increasing T3 and decreasing the T4 dose. The follow-up labs, this person had, I don't know what the actual values were, they just told me they had a TSH below 1. They had a free T4 that the doctor considered to be optimal, a free T3 the doctor considered to be optimal, and a reverse T3 that was around 8. So, because they were told that they had a higher reverse T3 on the T4 only, and that the reverse T4 was blocking, or the reverse T3 was blocking T3 from binding. And that's not necessarily the case. What reduces T3 from binding is really deiodinase 3, which deactivates T4 and T3 into less active forms of hormone. And so this doctor said, you're now optimized because TSH is is lower. They're not as concerned about the TSH value, but because free T4 and free T3 were in this doctor's optimal range and reverse T3 was now 8, the person was told, hey, you're optimized. We've got your thyroid panel where we need to have it. The meds are where they need to have it. But the patient's concerned because they still have hypothyroid signs and symptoms. They're having some other symptoms, but they're really gaining weight, and that's the big concern. So what could be going on here? Well, there's a couple things that could be going on. One is that we're saturating the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and that can activate the sympathetic nervous system, reduce the parasympathetic nervous system, and it can create a little bit more stress and inflammation on the system. So that's part one. Part two, by dropping TSH, what happens here is now we're getting less drive of the thyroid gland to produce T4 and a little bit of T3 that it typically generates. And if the person's suppressing their TSH and they're not getting any help from their thyroid gland to produce T4, the dose of T4 that they're on may actually be too low. Remember, the half-life of T4 is like 7 days, but the half-life of T3 is somewhere between 12 and 24 hours. So the person is probably not taking enough T3 to really support their metabolism, and they don't have enough T4 to really support their metabolism, so their metabolism is being downregulated. On top of that, they probably still have the immune inflammatory process that was actively deactivating the conversion of T4 to reverse T3. One of the big clues that this person may not have enough T4 in their system is this lower reverse T3. I know a lot of people in integrative functional medicine think reverse T3 has a blocking mechanism. Really, reverse T3, when it's elevated, is an indication that there's either too much T4 medication or there's an inflammatory process going on that's adaptively deactivating T4 to reverse T3 to slow down metabolism. And when that mechanism is in play, it's not just T4 that's getting deactivated, but T3 is also getting deactivated. The cells are adaptively downregulating. So for this person, what's likely happened is that they've got too little T4. The thyroid gland is being suppressed, so it can't help make T4. And they're also probably not having sufficient T3 in the system, even though these free values may look good or optimal, as somebody might consider. So what do you do in this situation? I think one of the things to consider is that if you don't feel well on your current dose, then it's either not the appropriate dose, or Two, there's some type of inflammatory process going on at the cell level, regardless of what you put in, T4 or T3, that's causing that hormone not to be converted. And so the other challenge is that when people get put on a combination of T4 and T3 medication, they're oftentimes not taking enough T3 or T4 medication to really support the physiology well enough on top of that immune inflammatory process. So to the person who asked the question, and I get this question asked a lot, could adding the T3 cause them to gain weight? And the answer is yes. You're probably in that kind of gray zone where you've suppressed the thyroid gland. It can help out. You're not taking enough T4, and you're probably not taking enough T3 either, given what you're trying to do. What would I suggest for this person? Remember, I don't prescribe, but what I like to see people doing, if they're trying to identify the root issues as to what's going on with their physiology, then I really want them on the least amount of T4 as possible. And if they need some T3, especially if their thyroid gland is really significantly atrophied, or they've had thyroidectomy, or they've had radiation treatment, or somebody's damaged or destroyed the thyroid gland, then maybe 5 to 10 micrograms of T3 at the tops. But pounding more into the system isn't going to fix it. And just trying to manipulate blood values doesn't always correlate with optimal thyroid physiology inside the cells. So I don't think this is a person who has an inability to convert T4 to T3. I think this person has a reduced demand to convert T4 to T3 due to some type of cell stress or inflammatory mechanism. So what I would suggest is, depending on whoever their doctor is, identify an appropriate level of T4. If they need a little bit of T3, small amount of T3, and then get busy trying to find out what's creating that cell stress response that's preventing them from converting T4 to T3 at the cell and tissue level. Remember, the thyroid gland only makes about 5 to 10 micrograms of T3 per day. The rest of the 20-25 micrograms of T3 are made in the peripheral tissues, not at the gland. So what drives the cells and tissues to convert T4 to T3? When cells are in low stress homeostatic regulation, they want to bring a lot of T4 in, convert it to T3, have a higher level of T3 in the cell to turn on the manufacturing process, to burn calories, to make energy, to make hair and skin and hormones and peptides and all this fantastic stuff. But when cells are perceiving danger, then there's an active down regulation of T4 to T3 in a lot of the tissues and a ramping up of the cell defense response. And you can't force more thyroid hormone into a system that doesn't want it and expect to have a really good result, okay? I hope this helps. If you have any questions, put them below wherever you watch the video, all right? Take care.